Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Step back with me into the days of Imperial Russia, the early 1900s. The once mighty Romanov dynasty is cracking under the weight of lost wars, starving peasants, revolutionary whispers, and the looming shadow of World War I. At the center of it all sits Tsar Nicholas II and his wife, Tsarina Alexandra. They are devoted but increasingly isolated parents. Their young son and heir, Alexei, suffers from hemophilia, a brutal bleeding disorder that threatens his life with every injury. The royal couple lives in constant fear and grief, desperate for any hope that can save their child and their dynasty. Into this fragile, pain-filled world arrives Grigory Rasputin. He is a wild-haired, charismatic peasant mystic from a remote Siberian village. He carries no official title, he commands no armies, he holds no government post. He simply appears at court claiming divine healing powers and spiritual visions. And through a mix of calming presence, folk remedies, and apparent success in easing the boy's bleeding episodes, he wins the trust of the desperate parents. Nicholas and Alexandra begin to call him our friend. They see him as a God-sent guide in their darkest hour. But Rasputin's role does not stop at prayer and healing. He starts to whisper. He warns the royal couple of hidden enemies, traitors wearing friendly faces, foreign plots, and disloyal ministers undermining the throne from within. He claims a special spiritual insight that the established advisors and nobles around them lack. He sows seeds of suspicion inside the palace itself. This general cannot be trusted, that noble family is scheming, the old order is blind and corrupt, and he elevates himself as the only reliable voice protecting the family from the darkness that's closing in. The Tsar and Tsarina, grieving and fearful, listen, and they defend him fiercely against growing scandals. His heavy drinking, his womanizing, and political meddling. They allow his influence to spread even as it alienates the broader court, the public, and many longtime allies. And the consequences were devastating. Trust inside the royal household and government fractured. Paranoia replaced steady leadership. Rasputin's presence became the very public symbol of corruption and madness at the top. The divisions and distrust he helped inflame accelerated the collapse of the monarchy, and in 1917 the Romanovs were overthrown. Nicholas, Alexandra, and their 5 children were imprisoned by the Bolsheviks and later died. The empire they believed they were protecting was destroyed. And although Rasputin himself was murdered in 1916, the poison had already done its work. He never fired a shot or signed a death warrant. He simply poured lies and conspiracies and whispers of betrayal into the ears of a grieving family at their most vulnerable moment and watched their legacy burn. All of that to say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does tend to rhyme. Candace Owens didn't kill Charlie Kirk. She didn't stand on the roof, climb up it, lie down, chamber a bullet, and fire it into his neck. But what she has done in the aftermath of his brutal death is step into the raw grief and shock of a movement that lost its leader and purported to offer them the one thing that they were desperate for: answers. Answers to the who, what, why, and how surrounding the loss of a man who changed the very world around him. And just like Rasputin once did with a grieving Romanov family, so did Candace grab the ear of a nation by claiming special insight and warning of betrayals from within. On her podcast, episode after episode, she has vociferated about internal plots and betrayals in Charlie's circle that include his own wife, his closest allies, and his most beloved friends. Security failures that couldn't possibly be anything but intentional. Foreign cabals that clearly were in cahoots to take Charlie out. And the constant refrain that everyone except her is wrong or lying about Charlie. Neither Charlie's widow, nor his confidants, mentors, his pastor, his closest friends like Tyler Boyer and Andrew Kolovit and Blake Neff, none of them are privy to this special revelation that Candace has. And it's actually even worse because she insists some of them might be privy to that information, might have been privy to it beforehand, and could possibly be involved in or aware of his murder before it happened. Worst of all, she has turned her wrath especially on Erica, publicly berating her, suggesting that she should be hauled down to jail and dragged into an interrogation room, and forcing her into the most vile catch-22 you can think of. If she cries that her husband's dead, she's mocked as shedding fake tears, performing for an audience, and not actually grieving. But that somehow the loss of her husband and her children's father doesn't actually break her heart, so she has to pretend it does. But on the other hand, if she's seen not crying at any given moment, or even more scandalous, if she dares to muster up a smile, she's scolded as a nefarious psychopath who clearly isn't grieving the right way. Therefore, it must be up to something and is entitled to bottomless scrutiny and scorn. Erica has been convicted in the court of Candace as guilty of being associated with the Maine victim. Neither positive emotion nor negative emotion is she allowed to express without drawing the relentless ire of Candace and her ilk. Candace has taken tragedy, vulnerability, and turned it into steady content, into fierce audience loyalty, and into her own expanding platform and influence. And that influence is still growing even after the preliminary hearing this month, in which evidence was presented that put to bed a whole slew of Candace's lies as just that. The result of Candace's crusade against reality is exactly what you would expect, and exactly what happened with Rasputin. Deep division inside the movement Charlie helped build, trust between one's allies shattered, and a legacy that is slowly being poisoned and distorted by the very conspiracies that she keeps pushing in his name. Rasputin didn't have to kill the Tsar. He only had to keep feeding suspicion and betrayal narratives into a grieving inner circle until the whole structure started eating itself alive from the inside. And Candace is doing the same thing. She didn't need to pull the trigger. She only needed to make sure that the wound never stopped bleeding, and that the people left behind turned on each other instead of facing what actually happened. And that's the great irony in all of this. A lie is a loan taken out with truth as collateral. It's easily spent in a time of greed, but ruinous when the bill comes due. All the while, the interest compounds in silence, and all that remains is the truth that you no longer own. Candace Owens, on day one, set out to go to war for the truth about what happened to Charlie, but as the truth continued to surface, its greatest enemy was shown to be the one who claimed to be its fiercest defender. And we will break down those types of lies specifically after the break. Welcome back. In order to understand Candace Owens' lies about the evidence surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination, one has to first observe the lies that Candace Owens says about herself. There's lies about the nature of Charlie's death, and we'll get to those, but there's also the lies she tells about her own reporting. Mostly that she didn't say what she taped herself saying. Need I remind Candace that the internet is forever?
I certainly didn't suspect Turning Point USA would be, as I believe, involved in a cover-up. It doesn't necessarily mean they were involved in plotting to kill him. And I've never said that. Cam Higbee is on the payroll of Turning Point USA, the very organization that just had its leader assassinated in broad daylight in front of the entire world. What about his burial? How come we haven't seen anything about his burial?
You repeatedly questioned why we weren't being told where Charlie Kirk is buried. Did you get those answers?
You have the wrong commentator who questioned that.
You've never asked where Charlie's buried?
Nope. What about his burial? How come we haven't seen anything about his burial?
She has said Charlie's murder, quote, had to be approved by Charlie's friends, and then suggested those friends might have her murdered too for, quote, knowing.
I never said that. The decision was made to murder Charlie Kirk, a decision that very clearly had to be approved by Charlie's friends. Is this going to be the pathway forward? You're going to start murdering more people in broad daylight for knowing? I never said that. I was totally in a cloud of grief. Okay, you remember I had to go away to Wyoming just to breathe. Like, what am I doing wrong here that I have to go away and cry for a long time and everyone else just kind kind of seemed giddy. Still haven't spoken to the press about Charlie Kirk, actually. Haven't even given one interview about Charlie Kirk because it felt icky to me.
I think that in the coming weeks, there's going to be a lot of financial reports that are coming out, and I, first and foremost, do not believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. I want to be very clear on that.
There's old footage of Tyler Robinson that is now circulating. Tyler certainly refers to it as his car, not his vehicle.
Vehicle in the lane.
If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix.
So I accept it with whistles and bells, everything I fully accept. You can pick the place, you can pick the time, but no, they need to have it in person in Phoenix on December 15th or they cannot have me at all. No one, and I mean absolutely no one, outside of my husband and Erica Kirk has the power to shut me up. There's nobody that has the capacity to get me to shut up about this except for Erica Kirk and my husband. I'm not going to stop unless Erica Kirk asks me to stop. If Erica Kirk asks me to be quiet, I will be quiet.
Stop. To stop.
I just do not accept any of that. Obviously, for this to have been pulled off, there had to have been multiple people involved. There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen.
You said that people at Turning Point were complicit in his murder.
No, my exact sentence that I said was that there were people at Turning Point who are engaged in a cover-up.
No, you didn't.
I believe
Sorry,
that
you didn't.
thoroughly.
Candace, you didn't say that.
There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen.
I never said that. I never said that. She did. It never happened. It did. I had to go off to a mountain and grieve. She was fishing and posting smiley photos online. Not a tinge of irony, by the way, right? Candace says Erica's grief's fake, and she's like accidentally exposing herself, faking a mournful getaway herself. It's funny, but there's something genuinely sinister about it too, considering that her little getaway was funded by the money she's made from spouting ill-informed conspiracies. So that's the first kind of lie that she tells, that she never said what she indeed said, and then, of course, we have the lies that she tells about Charlie's death. And before we roll the tape again, I want to shout out David Livingstone at the Milk Bar TV on X for that last clip that we played that was compiled by him, as is this one. Listen.
In fact, according to my source, Tyler has never even stepped foot on UVU campus.
I mean, who is Tyler Robinson? What the f was he doing there?
I don't
Do you think
Tyler Robinson was there.
You don't think he was there?
No. I think he's a total patsy.
Were you able to determine at what time or times Mr. Robinson visited the UVU campus on September 10th?
Yeah, we were able to establish that Mr. Robinson had been on campus approximately 4 times throughout the day, twice before the shooting, the time of the shooting, and then after the shooting later in the evening into the early hours of the 11th.
Now, of course, Candace, being frequently wrong but never in doubt, will say all of the footage from Tyler Robinson at UVU, the footage of Tyler Robinson's car at UVU, it's all actually other people. It's Tyler Robinson lookalikes driving Tyler Robinson's lookalike car. Her proof for this, of course, is just a gut feeling.
I think the person in the maroon that's walking is different from the person that's walking up the stairs. It's a gut thing, okay? I don't know, but I know, okay? I don't know, but I know. We don't know, but we know, so do not stop asking questions. I don't know, but I know. You know? I don't know, but I know. Something's not right. I know it's not right, okay? We don't know, but we know. You know? We don't know, but we know. And soon, we're gonna know.
Yeah, I mean, pretty convincing if you have the IQ of a shriveled up tomato. After all, why wouldn't we trust the gut of the woman whose strongest evidence to date that Turning Point is covered up in their founder and leader's murder is that Charlie told her so one night in a dream? So that's number one. Number two is her claiming that Lance Twiggs is a federal asset. This is the furry transgender boyfriend of Tyler Robinson. Her proof of that claim is that he was never questioned by police.
One, I think his roommate is a federal asset, Lance Twiggs. The person.
Why do you think that?
Because the police didn't even question him, which is bonkers. Yeah.
This meeting is to use your statement here instead of your testimony at a preliminary hearing. First, what's your name?
Full name with middle name or just first and last?
First and last is fine.
Okay, my name is Lance Twiggs.
And do you know Tyler Robinson?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
And this is the same Tyler Robinson that's been charged with the shooting of Charlie Kirk?
Yes.
Well, you know, I'd be the first to admit if the furry transgender boyfriend of the shooter, who Robinson texted and confessed his crime to, who lived with him, and who witnessed him engraving messages on the bullets, if he wasn't questioned by law enforcement, I'd be skeptical too. But her claim, as you see, had one small hole in it. Not only was he questioned by law enforcement, he was questioned by law enforcement twice. Once by the FBI and then joint state and federal agents several months later. Among other things, Candace Owens has said that a shape charge killed Charlie. Maybe the mic exploded. And then we find out, nope, the PETN was in his microphone. The official medical examiner report was a gunshot wound. The bullet fragments were recovered from his body. The rifle with Robinson's DNA was recovered. She said the shot came from below the Losi building. The Losi building is above Charlie. She even deceptively cut off a clip from the ATF's DNA expert to make it sound like Tyler Robinson's DNA was too degraded on the rifle for it to have been used by him.
This is what is crucial and it is explosive, and everyone should have reported on this. She reported that Tyler Robinson's DNA sample was the most degraded. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Tyler Robinson, despite all of these prints on the gun, Tyler Robinson's prints were the most degraded, or his DNA was the most degraded. And I'm going to explain that in a second. Take a listen to her say that.
The 1.3 sample is described as swabs of trigger and trigger guard, right?
Correct.
You didn't do the swabs, but am I correct that you have no way of knowing which part was from the trigger and which part was from the trigger guard?
Correct. So they were swabbed together, so I wouldn't be able to say where the DNA came from.
And that's one of the samples that was degraded, correct?
There were signs of degradation present in that sample, yes.
And you said with regard to that sample that that was a sample consistent with at least 4 contributors, right?
Correct.
And did what you term the major profile have the largest amount of degradation in that sample?
There was, yes.
And that's all of the testimony Candace wanted you to see. That's all she played on her show. She didn't want you to see the explanation that preceded, which was that the ATF analyst never testified that Tyler Robinson's DNA was the most degraded of all samples found on the gun, but that the major profile had the largest amount of degradation in one specific sample of one specific part of the gun, the trigger guard. She did not single out Robinson's as worse than every other sample across the firearm. Moreover, she also testified that the DNA profiles were at least 1 trillion times more likely to have come from Robinson as the major contributor than from unknown, unrelated individuals. The lab had to cap that stat because it was probably several trillion times more. So in other words, the testimony was a blow against Tyler Robinson, not a point in his favor, which of course you'd never know if you only listened to Candace. Now, I may have a gut feeling of my own, Candace. I might feel deep down inside a little confused that despite all of your theories and hunches and tips from anonymous sources that are just emails from fans and evidence and amazing points, None of those were deployed by Tyler Robinson's attorneys during the preliminary hearing. Isn't that interesting? Throughout the entire week-long hearing, a hearing to establish probable cause to send him to trial, which is to say have enough evidence to try him, the defense never employed an iota of your claims or so-called evidence. Never even tried to. And as for his whereabouts, for example, you would think that if Tyler Robinson had never set foot on UVU campus, the footage of him there would be contested as such. It wasn't. No cell phone data, no eyewitnesses, total silence. Now, if you had an alibi, the first thing your lawyers would do when prosecutors accuse you of being somewhere you weren't would be to present the alibi, showing why that's not true, and then argue, because of that, the footage is inadmissible for the trial. But nothing. And as I was preparing this show and making this very point, I came across another compilation from Nathan Livingstone, total patriot, of Candace Owens scratching her head as to why Tyler's defense hasn't contacted her.
I'm actually surprised Tyler Robinson's lawyer hasn't reached out to me. What's going on here? And by the way, still nobody, not even on Tyler Robinson's defense team, you would think I would be like number one they'd reach out to. They'd be like, her inbox, the tips, I've got the names, the people who said this person lied, here's where it was. No, they're not interested. Wake up, Tyler Robinson's defense team. I know it's a lot going on. If you're Tyler Robinson's defense, you may want to get that text message. Has anybody, we should be subpoenaing those text messages. So I asked him, did Tyler Robinson's defense lawyer reach out to you? No. You are telling me that he hasn't been like automatically subpoenaed into the court case? Why wouldn't I testify for the defense?
You know, at this point, you think she would connect the dots. I have all this evidence, all these tips. Why aren't his lawyers beating down my door? Why won't they invite me? Gee, Candace, that's a great question. Let's go a little further. I want you to follow your wondering mind all the way to the end there. But she won't. Again, because she's frequently wrong, but never in doubt. And that's just the beginning. The preliminary hearing dismantled all of her claims one by one with virtually no effort, but I don't expect her to do anything but double, triple, and quadruple down, because this is the point. At the end of the day, those who've known her closely over the years have told us, including her former boss, Jeremy Boring, that Candace Owens makes a lot of sense when you realize that her number one driver in her life is getting as rich and famous as she possibly can. All right, welcome back. ICE is getting a lot of flack this week in the mainstream media, nothing new. This time up in Biddeford, Maine, where a foreign national was shot and killed during a deportation operation. So how this is being covered by CNN, you know, now sometimes instead of writing an article style, they'll do these live updates. And this is what they had on their website as the updates from the day were rolling in after the shooting. So they say their whole takeaway: immigration and customs enforcement agents have been directed to halt most traffic stops after an ICE officer fatally shot a man in Maine yesterday, marking a striking reversal in tactics days after a federal agent fatally shot a Mexican immigrant during a traffic stop in Houston. ICE is also planning to equip each arrest team with an agent while wearing a body camera, a spokesperson said. Border Czar Tom Homan characterized the halting of most ICE traffic stops as a short pause rather than a larger policy change. Homan also downplayed the significance of the traffic stops and argued the move would not have a great impact on the number of ICE arrests. By the way, that's editorializing, downplaying. It's not journalism, it's editorializing. The man killed in Maine was 26-year-old Father Juan Sebastian Duran Guerrero from Colombia, a neighbor said. He was authorized to work in the U.S. and was issued a social security number, the Maine Immigrants' Rights Coalition said. He wasn't the target of the immigration operation, according to reports. That, if you look at the story on CNN's headline, that ICE killed another man, they killed someone else in Houston, DHS is pausing traffic stops by ICE, DHS is downplaying, which again is editorializing and not reporting. They're downplaying the significance. That's going to be your takeaway from if that's all you read about it. What they won't tell you, conveniently, is that Guerrero, the Colombian national, allegedly nearly ran over cops as he was trying to flee them. And that DHS's statement on it explicitly said the officer was, quote, in fear for his life and discharged his weapon. And now there's, of course, an investigation underway. It appears there weren't body cameras on the scene, and it doesn't seem like that they have solid footage from street cameras for whatever reason. And Guerrero was legally in the U.S. He was apparently borrowing a car linked to the residence of the man that ICE was trying to surveil. And this is a similar story to the Houston traffic stop that they're talking about. According to DHS, ICE tried to stop a Mexican foreign national who was here illegally. He apparently tried to flee, tried using his car as a weapon, and he was shot. So you have these stories that are very similar. I think the Houston guy was also not the target of the arrest or the deportation operation. But you're going to have Democrats saying this is the worst thing ever. You're going to have Republicans saying that, oh yeah, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. This is the bed you made, now lay in it. And I kind of take the approach that, when I see these stories, I'm kind of sad. We should be sad. Democrats should be sad when anyone dies. It doesn't make me happy. I don't gloat about the death of anybody. The difference is what we do with that sadness and how we move forward with it, how we put that sadness and anger and whatever emotion into action. Because the reality is that this is only happening because we've let 20 million people come into our country in the last several years. This is only happening because Democrats have tried to effectively make illegal immigration legal. You've got sanctuary states, cities like California, Chicago, Denver, Philly, who have prevented law enforcement from honoring ICE detainers or sharing information or inquiring about the status of someone. And these cities have boasted that they will not cooperate with deportation efforts. They've allowed illegals to obtain valid IDs and driver's license. They fought tooth and nail to shut down voter ID laws so that anybody who just gives a scout's honor can vote. They've pushed blanket amnesty proposals for everyone here illegally, which would give them the ability to vote. When people came here illegally, they were put up in hotels and given cell phones and money and released into the country, catch and release. These are the seeds that have sown sad stories like these, where a non-target of the immigration operation is at the wrong place at the wrong time and tragedy strikes. Which is not to say that the officers are at fault necessarily. I don't think they are. Because the reality is 99.99999% of the time these things happen, there's this outcry, oh, it's evil, it's awful, they gunned down someone in cold blood, and then we get the footage, and the investigation unfolds, and it turns out the shooting was totally justified. Like in the case of Renee Good, the American who tried running ICE agents over. Everyone was talking about how awful it was, and ICE was totally vindicated. And by the way, we do have body cams to thank for all of that. See, body cams back in the day, the libs wanted body cams because during the BLM movement, because they said, oh, it's going to prove how awful the cops are, and they're gunning down poor black women and poor black men just cold in the streets. So they were like, okay, well, we'll wear body cams, and then you get stuff like this. You guys remember this? This woman, this cop came and did a wellness check, and she comes out, opens the door, and tries slicing his head off with a kitchen knife, completely unprovoked. And in fact, this officer, the only flack that this officer got was not shooting her sooner, because he kept backing away and she kept charging at him with a knife, and he kept giving her the opportunity to put it down, and she wouldn't put it down. And so I say all of that to say, with these ICE stories coming out, we should be sad when people get shot and killed by anybody, by law enforcement, whatever. But we have to have a properly oriented sadness and anger, and we should not forget why these unfortunate stories are happening in the first place, and it's not for lack of trying on our part to have law and order. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're going to try something a little more interesting in this segment. We're going to play a clip that I came across on X of University Presbyterian Church in Texas, where they read a book about gay and lesbian couples having the time of their life in a gay-affirming church. And we're doing this because, I don't know, other than I'm a masochist, I guess. So that's the reason for it, but let's watch.
This book is called A Church for All, and there will be pictures up on the screen as well. I want you to pay attention to all the different kinds of people that we will see in this book today, and all the different kinds of families that we will see today, and really take note of the diversity of God's people and God's people, especially who come to church. Okay? So this is called A Church for All. A Church for All. Sunday waking. This is a family. What does it look like they're doing?
Eating breakfast.
Having breakfast. Yeah. Who had breakfast today? Good.
2 guys.
Yummy. Day is breaking. Does this look like people are kind of coming out, and maybe this person looks like they're blow drying their hair? Who blow dried their hair this morning? Yeah. Let's go to our church for all. This was all of us this morning, right? Going, let's go to our church for all. Let's do it. Church bells ringing, joyful noises. Look at all of these different kinds of people coming to church together, coming to worship God together. There is, isn't there? There is. They have a rainbow like we have a rainbow. Choir singing. Did we hear a choir today? Laughing voices.
Oh, okay. That was worse than I thought. That was my first time watching the video. It goes on for another 2 minutes, but thank God we cut it out early. And if I may clarify for a moment, by the way, when I say this is a Presbyterian church, it's really neither. As a Presbyterian myself, I fully and completely disavow. This is a PCUSA church. I'm not a member of that denomination. Okay, big difference in the PCUSA and the PCA, which is the true Presbyterian tradition. This is why there was a split for reasons like that. So I just need to put that out there and defend the denomination from garbage, gay stuff like that. This is kind of why I like the labels, by the way, because it separates the wheat and the chaff, distinguishes my denomination from the moronic heretics and blasphemers like that. A couple episodes ago, I mentioned how important it is to interpret the Bible rightly, and how failing to do so leads to stuff like that. And here it is on full display. This is the fruit of modern feminism. Men and women, they're really no different. 2 guys can have kids, 2 girls can have kids. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, to quote the old feminist slogan from the 70s. And men who are called to be the leaders of the church, they cede their biblical duty. And you get liberalism, theological liberalism, which basically says the Bible's a fluid book. It evolves and changes with the times. It's not inerrant or infallible. It's a fluid book. Who was that Democrat lawmaker the other day that said the Constitution's fluid? It's not. The Bible's even less fluid. And this is the fruit and part of the sexual revolution of the 60s. The idea that biblical sexual ethics are really oppressive and we need to just throw off our shackles and proclaim that we're perfect just the way we are and that God loves us unconditionally. It doesn't matter what you think, say, do, how you believe, who you want to worship. Heck, worship Allah. I don't care, because Allah's God and all gods are the same and God loves you no matter what. That's how you get the PCUSA. I think really the reason I played this clip on the show is because I hate the PCUSA so much. because they run down the Presbyterian names, so I'm just going to dunk on them. So I'll probably do that every show. I'll probably play a clip of a PCUSA church, because there's a lot of supply of garbage like that there. All right, well, we're going to piggyback a little bit off of that last segment with another video here. This is a woman on TikTok named Ashley Wishman, acknowledging and regretting that she fell for the lie of feminism.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick because I have to go into a meeting. I have 3 meetings today. I have been in the corporate life for almost half my life. For context, I'm 40 years old. I have 2 children who are 11 and 7. And I fell for it. I fell for this thing where, you know, go to college, get your degree. You know, if you want to have kids, you can do it all. You can have a career, you can have kids, you can just do everything. Well, I don't want to do everything. I don't want to do that anymore. I fell for that. Do not fall for it. Do not fall for that. I want to take my kids to school. I want to pick them up from school. I want to be there when they get home. I want to chaperone for them, volunteer at school. I just want to go to the gym, clean my house, do laundry, go to the grocery store, and just be home. So do me a favor. Do not fall for that, because it is not worth it. It's a joke. It's a joke. Don't do it. Be home, find a way to be home, be with your family, be with your kids. Just, it's not worth it. None of this is worth it. So.
Yeah, many such cases. Again, going back to our last segment, I mean, you got to feel bad for that woman. This is someone who's realizing in real time men and women are not the same. Our desires, our motivations, our temperaments, not the same. But for decades and really centuries, this insidious lie grew that, like I said in the last show, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Women don't need men. Men, you know, maybe they need women, maybe they don't, but mainly the women don't need men. And it reminded me of Simone de Beauvoir. She was a French philosopher in the 1900s, kind of the founding mother of modern day feminism. And she said that no woman should be allowed to stay at home to raise her children, because if they were given that choice, too many women would do it. And she firmly believed that women should be in the workforce, in the cubicles, in the trenches with men, doing everything that they do. And that's ultimately how we're going to emancipate women, is if we elevate them to the status of men. And so there's kind of this paradox, this irony that, you know, she's saying men and women are totally the same. And to prove that, we're going to make them do everything that men do. But if men and women are already the same, why do you have to go about changing what a woman is doing? You see what I'm saying? It's kind of that interesting logical contradiction where women have to deny and throw off their nature to prove that they're the same as men. And you know, my heart breaks for the people who fell for the Simone de Beauvoir lie. The lie of feminism. And we should pray for her, and hopefully that video inspires many more mothers, many more women to follow suit and throw off the real shackles of American life, which is the feminist lie. All right, welcome back. Time for some food for thought. I came across this video of Kirk Cameron on his podcast talking about what other than cigars. Both of which, to make my biases clear, I think they're a wonderful gift that God has bestowed unto man. Let's listen to Kirk Cameron.
Personally, I don't like cigars. I don't smoke them. They make me sick. But I kind of like the smell of them when others are smoking them at a distance. I kind of like the smell of a pipe even better, even though I don't smoke those either. I'll be honest, just the other night, I ran out and found a bottle of Bruichladdich single malt scotch recommended to me by a friend, just to have on hand in case he or some whiskey-loving friends and family who might come sit around the campfire would like some. I've even got a few cigars on a shelf too. Not because I think cigars are essential for Christian fellowship. They're not. You can have a deep conversation about the Lord over coffee or water or ribs and brisket. But I do appreciate what often happens when men slow down for an hour and smoke a cigar. They talk. They listen. They're not distracted. They laugh. They open up. And they talk about marriage, children, work, their fears, even their failures, their hopes for the future, their temptations, and talk about the Lord. And if a cigar or a glass of whiskey becomes an excuse for a meaningful conversation with my son or my son-in-law or friends or neighbors, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to thank God.
I love it. I love it. Charles Spurgeon once said of cigars, "What for some is sin, others do to the glory of God." And I intend to go home tonight and smoke a cigar to the glory of God. He called it the incense drifting from heaven. And I love that point. You know, the rest of the video, he goes on to explain, you know, obviously there's a line here with tobacco and with alcohol. If it causes a brother to stumble, or if someone is overcoming addiction, maybe they should stay away from it. Or if you know, consume it in a wrong spirit or in excess, then obviously that is not how it should be consumed. But overall, with all he said there, I couldn't agree more. The best, most enjoyable and profound conversations I've ever had in my life have been over cigars. There's something about it, about a cigar, that it's like a form of liturgy almost. You have the beginning, you're picking the type of cigar, you're choosing to cut, lighting it carefully. And then there's that 30 minutes to an hour where it burns slowly and it commands your respect and attention. And it just kind of takes you away from the instant rather. I just find the whole thing just concentrating and enjoyable. Speaking generally too, last thing I'll say, men can't just really sit around and talk, like plop down on the couch, cross their legs and talk. Men are doers. They have to be doing something with the fellas to bond and reflect. You know, you go play golf or whatever it is. And I love the C.S. Lewis quote. He said, "A pipe gives a wise man time to think and a fool something to stick in his mouth so he shuts up." And that's the other element too, is that some of the greatest Christian minds, like C.S. Lewis, were avid tobacconists. Chesterton, Spurgeon, Winston Churchill. These were guys, not only did they approve of cigar smoking, you'd rarely see them without one. Others like Mark Twain, the greatest novelist ever. He had a rule where he said he would never let his sleep interfere with his cigar smoking. So I love that it was brought up. You know, this is kind of one of those things that Christians have questions about these days. Can I smoke cigars? Can I not smoke cigars? You can smoke cigars to the glory of God. Absolutely. If you're not smoking a cigar to the glory of God, or if you're smoking it in a dishonoring manner, then abstain. And that'll do it for the show today. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Have a great rest of your day or evening, wherever you are. And we will see you next time. Stick around.